Hi, my name is Harris. I'm one of your podcast hosts. I'm also a lawyer at Treadstone Law. For most Canadians, buying, selling, or refinancing real estate, a lawyer is the last thing on their mind. That's unfortunate because lawyers play a vital role in the process. But what choices do Canadians have? Lawyers can be very expensive. Well, Treadstone Law offers resources to Canadians so they have access to the information they need. Whether you sign up for a live workshop or a mailing list, we cover topics to help you make informed decisions and avoid costly mistakes. It's advice you can start using today, and best of all, it's free. Visit treadstonelaw.ca/MAS offer or click the link below to get access right now. If you're looking to retain Treadstone Law, it's never been easier. Our entire process is online. From completing the retainer agreement to your signing appointment, everything is done from the comfort of your own home. We're your digital lawyers. The best part of it is that you don't pay anything when you're retaining our firm. Visit treadstonelaw.ca/MAS offer or click on the link below to retain us right now. Enjoy the podcast. Welcome to another episode of Hustle and Grit. Today on my podcast, I have Gretchen Casey. Gretchen is a seasoned mortgage agent with over 2 decades of service in the mortgage industry. Based in Oshawa, Ontario, she extends her expertise nationwide through the Pineapple Brokerage, catering to clients across Canada. With a commitment to securing the ideal mortgage solutions, Gretchen thrives on facilitating home ownership and investment property ventures while ensuring significant cost savings for her clients. With a bachelor's degree in psychology from the University of Michigan, she combines her profound understanding of human behavior with her years of industry experience to help as many people as possible, specializing in assisting self-employed individuals and those who face challenges securing a mortgage. Welcome to the podcast, Gretchen.
Thank you so much, Harris. I'm happy to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you on. You know what? University of Michigan is one of the most fantastic universities there. Just to start off, and I'm really just diving in right away, how did you get from there to a major in psychology into mortgages? Was this something that you always kind of thought you were going to do? Was it something that you kind of went into later on? What was kind of your trajectory in being the successful broker that you are today?
Okay, well, my path was born in Michigan, from there with my family. Went to school there, loved Michigan. From there, moved to Boston. From there, moved to Southern California. When I was in Southern California, through my work, I met a Canadian and who lived in Toronto, who I did end up marrying and moved to the Toronto area. So that's how I ended up here. And being close to Michigan, I wanted to be close to my family again. As I started to think about having children and things like that. Getting into mortgages specifically was a fluke because I was looking for a new career. The career I was in had some challenges. It was the industry was changing. So I was a graphic arts salesperson. And so anyway, somebody asked because I was looking for something new, would I want to be an assistant to a mortgage agent who was a new mortgage agent who hadn't even gotten his license yet. And so I said, yeah, that sounds interesting. And right away, I took the course. I found out what it was all about. And he never actually ended up getting into mortgages. And I right away started doing them myself as opposed to being someone's assistant. And the reason it was such a good fit is I am very detail oriented, which you need to be in mortgages. I love sort of projects, like going from start to finish and getting the solution for the client. I wasn't afraid to ask questions and just dive right in there. One of my first mortgages was a private mortgage, which I wasn't intimidated by because it was like, hey, if that's what the solution is, I'm going to do it. Just like helping people to find good options. I love being a broker because you're not stuck with like a bank. One bank is going to have this many solutions, whereas as a broker, there's like so many solutions. I don't often have to tell someone, I can't help you. Or, often it's, I can help you now, or I'm going to help you on the path to get into that A mortgage in the next 6 months, a year, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I always say whenever somebody asks me for advice, even though, again, I have nothing against banks, but I always say you need to use a broker because a broker if they're good at what they're doing, and I guess what you said is the prime example of this. The example I'm about to give is if they know what they're doing, they're going to be around 5 years from now when you have to go renew your mortgage. Whereas if you're going to the bank 5 years from now, if you're good, you're going to get promoted, you're going to be gone. And the ones that, if you're still there in 5 years, I have questions for you. But with the brokers, it's the complete opposite. And it's like with the banks, like you just said, they only have certain amount of products, and if like they have a shoe size 9 and an 11, and you need 10 or whatever it is, they're just gonna figure out whatever fits. Whereas with a broker, you can get something, you can get that shoe size 10 or whatever it is that you're looking for. And so I always say with brokers, it's more of a lifelong relationship as opposed to a more of a transactional thing. Just because, like you said, so many banks, when you're buying your first home, when you're buying your cottage, refinancing for school, whatever it is, you could always go to that same broker, and they know your kind of your lifestyle. I actually, this is a new analogy I was just thinking of right now. It's kind of like a family doctor. You want to have somebody that you're going with, right? Yeah, they know your history, they know everything. You don't have to re-explain everything. They know your temperament, and it's awesome to actually have a degree in psychology, because I do feel like there's a lot of psychology involved. But it is like a family doctor. What do you think of that scenario? Do you think that is an apt analogy for that?
I do, in a lot of ways, actually, because I also use that analogy when someone will say, like, okay, I need a mortgage. What rate are you going to get me? And that they don't give me information. And I say, well, I'm like a doctor. Like, I got to examine you first. I got to ask you questions. I got to know some things before I can tell you the rate or what the best product is. And some people, they only understand the rate. So I kind of, that's hard. But yeah, I got to examine you and help make sure I'm giving you the right solution for now and in the future. But I agree. Yeah, it's a good analogy. And I found too, like early on, being a broker, I would have people come to me and they're like, well, my bank told me I could only get approved if I have a cosigner. But, well, my mom doesn't want a cosign. And it would be like, well, there are other options. But they, instead of giving you those other options, they're just trying to force a solution that really isn't right for you necessarily. You could go to an alternative lender, or maybe that person didn't even realize you really don't have to have a cosigner.
Yeah. So what do you think of the analogy in terms of mortgage brokers being like family doctors, in terms of just building that lifelong relationship and being able to help your clients as you kind of go along?
Yeah, I totally agree that that's a great analogy, because, like you say, you've got that history, you know where they've been, you know where they're going, and it's super helpful to have that continuity. You don't have to re-ask for documents or things like that necessarily, depending on how long since you worked with them. And also, I find that it's true in that, like a doctor, I do still have to ask questions and make sure I'm getting the right information and asking the right questions.
Yeah. Now I have another question that's very kind of, I think you can shed some really good light on this, because I'm really drawing on your education in psychology. Most people, whenever they go to a broker, even when they come to me and I have no idea, they're like, hey, what's the lowest rate? Right. The rate question is number one. And I try to explain as much as I know, even though I am a real estate lawyer on the tail end of these transactions. I also know, seeing this stuff every day, I don't know what a mortgage is. A mortgage isn't a mortgage. There's 5 million different products. And it's something that, like, it's very unique in terms of how the approval end of it happens. I can tell you the legal end of it, but just in terms of how it fits into your financial world, all of that, that's not my expertise. But the number one question everyone has is what's the lowest rate? And they ignore the 100 other features that go in a mortgage and the lender and all these other policies. What actually gets people? What compels people to start off with that question? Is my question to you. And then how can people actually? I want all my listeners who are in that mindset. How can they kind of pull themselves out of? I gotta think of like more than just a rate. And the reason I ask this is every single time I say there's more to a mortgage than a rate, I see eyeballs rolling. I see people thinking like, I'm just making stuff up. All that really matters is the rate because they feel like if I say, you should be looking at more things, I'm really trying to sell them something that they don't need, even though I'm not selling them anything. But they think that, that somehow, some way, there's something in it that they don't understand that they should only be looking at the rate. So what is it first that compels people to look at rate, and what will help them psychologically kind of get beyond just the rate and into what they should be looking at?
I think a couple things. One is that the rate is something they hear and understand. So they don't want to appear that they're not knowledgeable or that they don't know what to ask. So they ask that rate question. They also don't want to be taken advantage of or feel like they're kind of a sucker because, oh, they went with the rate that was point 0.2 higher than if they'd gone somewhere else. So they're like, they don't want to lose an opportunity. So they feel like if I got the best rate, I'm a winner.
Yeah.
So it's, and it makes that's the answer to that question. I mean, I think that yes, if people realize asking about more things doesn't mean I'm not going to give you the best rate. They kind of feel like, oh, if you ask that
Mm.
question, automatically you're not giving me the best rate and I should go to someone else.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that exactly. And
You can have
yeah.
both. You can have best rate
Yeah.
and the right product and the right solution and the right person working with you. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
Yeah, it's kind of like the best rate for your scenario, but then people are like, no, well, you know what? Like, whenever I guess if anybody's at the dinner table or like if anybody does talk about this during any family gatherings, I know my dad used to talk about this a lot. My generation, I don't know, not as much, but it's like who won the rate game is sometimes what they're playing, but in reality, if you want to see who won the rate game, you got to really figure out your entire mortgage because there's a lot of people who temporarily won, and I'm not against variable mortgages, but if you went 2022, 2021, people had 1.5s, now they're significantly higher than the fixed end, so it moves all over the place too. Not again, I'm not saying that people picking the variable rate at that time was wrong. It all depends on your financial situation and a host of other factors. But I think that especially the rate game, it really matters the most, especially when you're self-employed. Because I know that a lot of people, and you know this better, maybe you could speak to it a little bit. If you go to the bank and you want to get the lowest rate, it means that you have to declare more income and then you're paying more taxes just to get a lower rate. Whereas you could get what is perceived to be a lower rate, but you don't have to declare as much income, and it optimizes kind of your overall net worth. Does that? I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, you are making sense. Absolutely. Um, yes, you're right. You may save on interest, but increase your taxes to the point where that wasn't the right solution. Whereas you could have maybe gotten you know, the same rate or a better or a higher rate, but less taxes. Absolutely. So, yeah, it really, if people are willing to be patient to be asked the questions, supply the answers, not just ask the right question, they're going to get a better solution that they're happy with in the short term and long term.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Now, changing gears a little bit, I want to know just a little bit about what the process is like working with you. Like, and I know that the short answer of it is probably give you a call. And for all of those listeners who do want to give Gretchen a call, depending on where you're listening, her contact information is going to be either on the side or below side. So definitely shoot her an email. Or her team an email if you do need any help. But what's kind of the process? Like, do people need to give you a call? How early should they give you a call? So if my renewal is coming up in December, is now a good time to give you a call? What's kind of the process working with you?
Yeah, so if you're doing a renewal specifically, I say 6 to 8 months out, connect with myself. And for renewals specifically, I want you to see what your current lender is going to offer you. And then, let's have a conversation about, even if that's a great rate compared to what other people are offering, should you be renewing, or do you want something? Do you need a line of credit? Do you need to maybe get some money to buy a rental property? So,
Mm.
also sometimes the renewals are they're like, okay, 5-year fixed. Well, that might not be the right solution. Maybe a 2 or 3 year is going to be better. So make sure, see what your current lender is offering. No problem doing that. I think that's smart. But at the same time, then compare that, get advice about what else you could be doing potentially. And does it make sense to, and sometimes I tell people, yeah, that if this seems based on our conversation, renewing with that lender is the right solution. Awesome, go for it. Here's a rate that I could get you if you left. I want you to use that for leverage because you don't need more money. You don't want to move. This is the right solution, but they may be holding back on what they could give you. And I'm happy to tell people that I don't move them just for the sake of moving them so I can get paid.
Yeah, yeah. But in order for everyone to actually get the best rate or best product, best service, I would say that they really need to sit down and kind of think about not just the rate that they're getting in the mail from the bank. It's like you said, the next 5 years. If your kids are going off to school, you need money. If you're going to buy a cottage, vacation home, invest, a million different things can happen. If you're looking for a job on the West Coast, whatever it is, you're going to have to plan that out now, right? Or is it going to be, can they just kind of wing it?
Yeah, no, I would say it's better to plan for sure. And as far as like us in general, the process, I mean, some people are like, I just want to jump right in. They can do the online application on my website. That's going to tell me, hey, somebody did an application. They don't have to spend hours doing it. It's going to take them maybe 10 minutes just to put in the basics. I do like to talk to people early in the process just to make sure I do understand what they're wanting and what I make my recommendations be accurate. So we usually have a phone or Google Meet conversation. And then I collect documents to make sure that the numbers that I've discussed with the person are accurate based on their income and their mortgage, if they have a mortgage already. Collect documents. Then I send kind of, this is my recommendation and maybe a few options. Maybe we're looking at, doing a 2-year term or a variable. So give the information. And then assuming we reach a joint decision that this is the right recommendation and what we're going to go forward with, then it goes to a lender. And I make recommendations on lenders based on a variety of things, not just rate, but it could be product, could be service, could be, the process. Like if, say, some lender maybe has a great rate, but they're very slow, and I know it's going to take a week before they even look at it, and this client's in a hurry because the renewal's coming and it's in 3 weeks from now. That's part of the decision making as well. But yeah, so it goes to the lender. So then the client deals with me consistently. So the lender response comes to me and the form, usually a mortgage commitment. And then that commitment I send to the client for signing. If an appraisal is needed, an appraisal happens. If we need a few more documents, we get the few more documents. And so all this goes to the lender until everything's approved. And that's what we call in the broker world, broker complete. That means everything's approved. Now it's just with the lawyer. And so they get their home insurance, they deal with the lawyer, and then they have what we call the closing or the funding. And if they've done a purchase, they get the keys.
Right. Perfect. No.
I mean, I know it's quick, but
short and sweet. But yeah, that's what, again, one of the things I wanted to touch upon again was with on the broker world was that when you're dealing with a broker, you're kind of really just speaking to all of the banks for you. And since you're just doing this and there's so many clients that you're negotiating with, I feel like hypothetically, for example, if you go to a branch at your local branch, they're only negotiating with you when it comes to a mortgage. When they're speaking to you, they're actually speaking about 10 different mortgages. So I feel like they're going to speak to you very differently than they're going to speak to me when I go into a branch, not only because I'm just one guy, but you would know their, I guess, risk tolerance and appetite and all of that more intimately than anyone walking in can, and you can present the file the best possible way to get the best possible rate. Does that make sense, or am I making stuff up?
No, it makes complete sense. And also, I can quickly change gears. So I had a file this week, which discussed with the client. recommended a lender. They said, that's great. Sent to the lender. This is for a purchase. So I wanted pre-approval. The lender comes back to me and says, well, this client had defaults with us 7 years ago. And another broker came to us a few years ago, like 4 years ago, to do a refinance, and we turned them down. Well, the client didn't tell me any of this information. It wasn't on the credit bureau, and got the decline. I discussed it with the client, and they told me their reason of why that happened, which was made sense. It wasn't that, and it would have been helpful if they told me up front, but,
Yeah.
I felt comfortable with their reply of why it had happened. And then I could immediately send it to a different lender and get them the pre-approval. Whereas if they'd gone to a bank who didn't approve them, now they're going to start all over again with somebody else. So they're not starting over again. I have the information, I have the document, I have the application. I'm just sending it a different way right away. There's no wait.
Yeah, it's effortless.
Yeah.
Effortless on their part. I'm imagining you have to see the effort's on your end.
A little more effort on my end. Yeah.
So I want to change gears again a little bit, and I think I'm going to bring all of this together. So in terms of rates, I know we talked about people starting off with rates. I want to move into a little bit about what's going on in the market, and kind of speak to that a little bit. I know we had the rate question right now and why you shouldn't be looking at rates, but I just happens to be that the Bank of Canada just dropped their rates 25 basis points a while back. I think there was a lot of questions around whether they would or wouldn't. We had unprecedented rate hikes. Then everybody was holding their breath, waiting for them to come down. Everybody thought when they were going up, the market was going to crash. Everybody now afterwards thought when they come down, the market's just going to go crazy. None of that really happened. I mean, it kind of happened, kind of didn't. To start things off, I'm going to ask a crystal ball question. Where do you think rates are going to be by the end of the year? Do you think we're going to see any other cuts? Are we going to see a cut in July? Are we going to see cuts any other time during the year? What's kind of your prediction on that? And I'm not going to hold you to it.
Yeah, well, the experts, economists, they range a bit, but for kind of a consensus is likely to come down. So, and to be clear, the Bank of Canada announcement is about the overnight rate, which is tied to the variable rate. So if you have a variable rate mortgage or a line of credit or a variable rate, sometimes you can have variable rate credit card. Your rate went down, the prime rate went down by 0.25. They're estimating possibly still 2 more times this year by another 0.5%. So, and some people, their payment goes down depending on their lender. Some the payment does not go down. It's just more is going to go towards principal than interest. At this point, that seems logical that this is going to happen. A couple things, though, that one, a term that I actually this morning got familiar with from an email, because I get emails daily from lenders and all kinds of sources, was talking about divergence, which has to do with the U.S. rates not coming down as fast as the Canadian rates. And part of the reason, too, is it's a different market. We do 5-year terms, they do 30-year, but that could influence what happens with our rate. So, and if depending on the U.S., it could delay further cuts or make them not as much as they could have been. And also inflation. So inflation is a big factor. The fixed rates, because they're not directly tied to the Bank of Canada announcement or the prime, they've been coming down consistently for about a month, and they continue to come down. About once a week I get, different, they're coming down. So I do rate watches every week for my clients who have a mortgage commitment already, or who are pre-approved, or who are saying they're interested in getting in the market, because it is going down consistently.
Well, I mean, do you have any predictions on, well, this is kind of a stretch, but I'm going to still throw it out there, on the rates in the U.S.? I do know that last 10 election cycles, rates they go down when it's an election year. And I feel like, is it plausible they're going to come down as well, and we're just going to go in sync with them?
Yes, I mean, that is possible. And in fact, sometimes lenders will offer these special terms that, like Desjardins has one right now. It was 3 years and 3 months instead of just 3 years because of the U.S. election cycle. So it's potentially yes, but I don't feel I can make like a definite this is what's going to happen comment about
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
how the elections are going to affect it.
Yeah. So for people who are, I guess, investors looking at their portfolio, and looking at like, is now a time to kind of good time to look at where their interest rates are, because they may be, I know investment went down in 2022, 2023. It slowed down. I think this, I would argue that some of the smart guys are still out there. You could still get tons of good deals. They're just not what the market wasn't what it was in 2021. But the people in 21 and 22, a lot of people kind of just hunkered down and said, okay, we're just going to pause. We're going to see where everything is. And a lot of them may be up for renewal in 26, 25. That's kind of where a lot of their properties are coming up to renewal. Should they kind of start looking at their portfolios now, thinking that, okay, you know what, we might be coming down, might be a good time to start seeing if I could refinance, if they need to pull out equity or whatever it is to restructure their portfolio? Or are you of the mindset of wait and see where these rates are in the next 6 months, and you'll get a better understanding, better picture of what you should be doing with that portfolio?
Well, a lot of people were affected by the capital gains tax announcement, where the capital gains increased on rental properties. So that was driving some people to either sell or buy because of that. So it wasn't about just interest rates. So that is something to keep in mind as far as, and it's quite an individual decision because some people, like you said, it kind of depends on when they're going to renew.
Yeah.
Do they need to pull equity out? Are they someone who wants to continue to invest? Because I work with a lot of investors who, they're refinancing, they're converting properties. So they're like, buy a single family, convert it to a duplex, refinance it. They call it the BRRRR strategy. You take out equity and buy another property. So if you're on a growth, if you're at the growth phase of your investing, even if rates are high, you may do a 1-year term with the thought it might come down in a year, likely, and continue your process versus if someone who's, well, and the other trend too is, buying where things are cheaper. So maybe buying in New Brunswick, Thunder Bay, Alberta, although prices are starting to go up in Alberta. And a big trend right now is buying in the US because a lot of Canadians, especially with that increase in the capital gains, are not happy. And so they're like, hey, maybe investing in, Tennessee or Missouri is the way to go.
Yeah, yeah. And then do you see that with, again, this is more of a real estate question, but do you find that the market is slowing down for investors? Is it picking up? Where do you kind of see the trajectory in terms of activity compared to where it was 12 months ago or 6 months ago? Or do you find that people are investing more now than they were before, or are they slowing down? What's kind of the temperature of the market, for lack of better word?
Well, I think they're reevaluating. And again, it depends on what part of this phase they are, if they're at their building phase or if they're at their, the end of the cycle and they're maybe wanting to sell and get into other, but there's concern. There's definitely concern, which has made some people pause and reevaluate. So I would say, and it's the cost of living as well, right? Like it's not just the interest rates, but everything else has been expensive. So, yeah, and those buyers haven't been rushing back to the market as much as has been hoped.
Yeah.
It's coming down. They're still a bit on the sidelines, the buyers.
Yeah.
And rent, there's a lot of trouble with people not being able to evict tenants who are taking advantage of the situation, right? There's a lot of the landlord and tenant board is very slow, and it's better now. It was slow during COVID. Now it's better. But I would say there's a lot of reevaluating, which probably has caused some slowing down a bit.
Yeah. So, and then I'm going to wrap this up with this. My last question would be, I know we spoke about if your renewal is coming up, reach out to you in 6 months. For investors, what's the timeline that they should be thinking about reaching out to you for, whether it's renewal or if somebody is on the sidelines, they want to invest, they don't know if they're going to invest. I mean, this fall, next summer, because the market's a little bit unpredictable, so they don't know when they're going to jump in. What's the best time for investors to reach out to you to understand their position, what they can afford, and understand the financing end of it? Is it the same as somebody who's doing it for their own home, or do you think that there's a different element involved? And if so, what is that element?
Well, I'd say as soon as you decide that you might want to be an investor beside investing in the home you're going to live in, uh,
Hmm.
even if maybe you're going to buy a duplex and live in it, rent out, start educating yourself right away. And that can mean, yes, talk to myself. I can help you with that. I can also connect you with, investors groups like Durham Real Estate Investors Group that I go to every month, where you're going to learn about all kinds of great things and make a lot of connections and meet people. Um, there's, of course, things online, but networking and listening to podcasts like this, do your education. Start right away with your education, because, and they say if you're going to buy and hold, which is the strategy for most people, if you look at real estate historically, it's going to go up. There's only so much land, so
Hmm.
um, the strategy of, oh, I think I'll wait a year or two isn't probably going to be the smartest strategy, because you'll miss an opportunity to get in
Hmm.
when the prices are. But of course, you got to consider part of the education is, where do I buy, where to invest, and what type of property. Am I going to jump into a duplex? Am I going to go into doing a conversion? Am I going to get a multifamily? Can I qualify to get a sixplex? Is that a smart
Hmm.
strategy? So just start your education, because there's a lot to learn. And if you listen to other people, you can help avoid some mistakes. You're going to have mistakes no matter what, but at least you can avoid some of them.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Mistakes, learning experiences.
yeah, experiences, mistakes. You know what? Mistakes, I like better only because if I think anybody who's a seasoned investor knows they made a lot of them. You have to pay your like dues, and that's how you learn. You can't learn simply just from like a theoretical, like, oh, I read it in a book. I think that the world is a lot different, but yeah, definitely agreeing in that you got to go out and you got to network, because I think that's like just true in any case, in any business, any industry. You have to surround yourself with smart, intelligent advisors. I would say this is also for those listeners. I would say that um, when you're doing any kind of investments, homes, my perspective is always surround yourself with the people who know, so you're not worried about figuring everything out and you're focused in on what you need to focus in on. But yeah, anyone who wants to reach out to Gretchen, again, her contact information, depending on where you're listening, is either going to be on the side or below. Definitely reach out to her and her team, and to get things started. Thank you for coming on, Gretchen. Any last words before we end the podcast?
Well, thank you so much for having me and letting me talk to you and reach some of your audience. And I'd say, yeah, work with people and ask questions, and go where people are willing to share what they know, so that you can be, and especially if you're an investor, like, be around other people who have the same interest as you, and they're going to encourage you and help you along the way.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome. Thanks so much.